The divide between sports fanatics and those who feel nothing toward athletic competition is rooted in deep-seated psychological and evolutionary mechanisms. For millions, sports act as a modern proxy for tribalism, where the brain treats a team as an extension of the self. Through the release of dopamine and oxytocin, fans experience genuine emotional highs and lows, often using sports as a mechanism for belonging. This phenomenon is reinforced by intermittent reward cycles similar to gambling, which keep the brain in a state of constant, addictive suspense. Conversely, those who do not care about sports often possess different cognitive patterns, showing weaker tribal attachment and reduced us versus them thinking. Their brains do not automatically seek identity through external group victories, suggesting indifference is linked to biological variations in dopamine receptors. Ultimately, this reflects a self-worth structure that relies on personal achievement rather than the symbolic, vicarious success of a professional athletic team. Think about the intensity of a stadium crowd, where thousands of individuals synchronize their emotions to the movement of a ball. To the fan, this is not just a game. It is a profound emotional experience that validates their place within a larger community. Yet, for the non-fan, watching this spectacle can feel like observing a foreign language, devoid of any inherent meaning or logical connection. This disconnect is not a lack of emotion, but rather a fundamental difference in how the brain allocates its limited psychological resources. Psychologists have long studied this phenomenon, noting that the human drive for tribal affiliation is a powerful ancient survival instinct. In our ancestral past, belonging to a group was the difference between life and death, shaping our brains to crave social cohesion. Modern sports have effectively hijacked these ancient pathways, turning jerseys into identity markers and rivalries into surrogate emotional warfare. When a fan shouts, "We won," they are not speaking metaphorically. Their brain is literally processing the team's victory as a personal success. This psychological fusion explains why a loss can feel like a genuine, stinging defeat, impacting a fan's mood for several days afterward. However, those who remain indifferent to sports often exhibit a different internal architecture, one less dependent on external group validation. Research suggests these individuals have weaker tribal attachment patterns, meaning they do not feel the same pressure to conform to group identities. This does not mean they lack social connection, but rather that their sense of self is built on a more individualized foundation. A 2019 study highlighted that these individuals show significantly less us versus them thinking, preventing the automatic creation of emotional loyalties. They do not feel the need to divide the world into allies and enemies based on the arbitrary outcome of a professional game. This can sometimes lead to a feeling of disconnection from mainstream culture, where sports serve as a primary social and status ritual. When someone asks, "Did you see the game?" they are often performing a social test to see if you share their values. For the non-fan, this ritual can feel exhausting, as they are being asked to participate in a script they never signed up for. Beneath this social layer, neuroscientists have found that sports activate reward systems that are almost identical to those found in gambling. Every pass and every near miss creates a spike in dopamine, driven by the uncertainty of the game's final, unpredictable outcome. This intermittent reinforcement is the same mechanism that keeps people tethered to slot machines, creating a cycle of addictive anticipation. Fans become hooked on the constant emotional suspense, craving the tiny dopamine hits that occur every few seconds during a live match. Without these games, some fans feel a genuine sense of loss, as their emotional rhythm is tied to the cadence of the season. Conversely, people who don't care about sports do not receive these same rewards from vicarious competition, as their brains are wired differently. Researchers believe this difference may be partially genetic, with variations in dopamine receptors influencing how we respond to external stimuli. This suggests that your complete indifference towards sports might be a biological trait rather than a conscious choice or a social failure. Another key difference lies in the psychological defense mechanism known as basking in reflected glory, which fans use to protect their ego. When the team wins, the fan claims the victory as their own, but when the team loses, they distance themselves by saying they failed. This strategic shifting allows the fan to maintain a positive self-image, regardless of the actual performance of the athletes on the field. People who don't obsess over sports are less likely to fuse their identity with external outcomes, protecting them from this emotional roller coaster. Their self-worth is typically derived from direct, tangible experiences, such as their work, their creativity, or their personal relationships. They find meaning in their own achievements rather than in the symbolic, vicarious victories of a team they have no control over. This creates a completely different emotional structure, one that is less volatile and more focused on internal growth and stability. Yet, it is a mistake to assume that non-fans lack empathy. In fact, they often possess high levels of emotional intelligence. They simply allocate their emotional energy differently, investing it in art, music, science, or deep, meaningful personal connections. A 2021 study found that those with low sports interest often score higher in openness to experience and aesthetic sensitivity. Their brains seek stimulation through imagination and exploration, rather than through the physical dominance or competition of sports. This explains why sports fans and non-fans often struggle to understand each other, as they are seeking meaning in fundamentally different ways. One side finds fulfillment through collective emotional drama, while the other finds it through internal depth and personal inquiry. Neither approach is objectively superior, but they represent distinct ways of navigating the complexities of human existence. For some, the lack of interest in sports also stems from an emotional backstory, perhaps involving childhood exclusion or bullying. If you were alienated by a hyper-competitive culture, it is natural to feel a sense of confusion when adults collapse over games. That confusion is a valid response to a world that places so much weight on entertainment, status, and tribal belonging. If you already find deep meaning in your own life, sports can feel like an unnecessary distraction from your true priorities. This is why you might watch a championship game and feel absolutely nothing. Your brain simply doesn't attach significance to the event. You are not broken, nor are you boring. You are simply wired to find your purpose through different, equally valid channels. People who don't obsess over sports often report feeling more present in their own lives, as they aren't living through others. They spend less time invested in the spectacle and more time engaged in the direct, messy, and rewarding work of building their own reality. There is a quiet power in focusing on what you can control, rather than being swept up in the tides of collective emotion. If you have ever felt like an outsider for not caring about the score, remember that your perspective is a valid psychological stance. Understanding this can help you feel less disconnected from the crowd, as you realize your indifference is a feature, not a bug. You are simply prioritizing your own internal landscape over the external drama that consumes so many others in our modern society. Embrace the fact that your brain seeks meaning in exploration and creation, which is a unique advantage in a world of spectators. By focusing on your own path, you are building a life that is authentically yours, free from the need for symbolic, vicarious validation. Beyond biology, the divide between fans and non-fans often stems from how individuals choose to allocate their limited emotional energy. While sports fans practice collective emotional investment, those who remain indifferent often channel their focus into internal exploration and aesthetic sensitivity. Research suggests these individuals frequently score higher in openness to experience, preferring to find meaning through personal growth or intellectual discovery. They find fulfillment in the nuance of art or complex ideas rather than the high-stakes, binary drama of professional athletic competition. This creates a fundamental disconnect. One group experiences life through external, collective rituals, while the other finds fulfillment in direct, internal engagement. Ultimately, not caring about sports is not a sign of being broken. It is a reflection of a brain wired differently. These individuals seek purpose through unique channels, prioritizing the creation of their own reality over the consumption of spectator narratives. By focusing on their own lives rather than games they cannot control, they cultivate a distinct, grounded form of personal presence. This perspective allows them to bypass the vicarious highs and lows, finding satisfaction in the tangible progress of their own journey. In the end, both paths offer valid ways to navigate the human experience, shaped by our unique cognitive and emotional landscapes. Consider how empathy functions. Sports fans exercise it through shared suffering and celebration, creating a bond that feels deeply communal. Non-fans, however, often direct that same empathetic capacity toward the characters in a novel or the themes within a piece of music. It is not that they lack the ability to feel. It is that their emotional radar is tuned to a different frequency entirely. When a sports fan watches a game, they are participating in a social contract that demands emotional vulnerability and collective loyalty. For the non-fan, that same contract feels artificial, as if they are being asked to perform a role that does not fit. This friction is where the misunderstanding deepens, as both sides view their own method of meaning-making as the most natural one. Psychologists note that this difference is often rooted in early developmental experiences, where some children feel alienated by hyper-competitive environments. If you were bullied on the playground or excluded from the team, your brain might have learned to associate sports with rejection. That early aversion can persist into adulthood, making the spectacle of professional sports feel like a reminder of past discomfort. Yet, for others, the indifference is simply a lack of resonance. The game is just a series of movements without inherent meaning. They look at the stadium and see a business transaction, while the fan sees a battlefield where their identity is being tested. This gap in perception is why the question, "Did you see the game?" can feel like a test of belonging or exclusion. The non-fan is not necessarily rejecting the person asking. They are rejecting the premise that the game is a universal language. By stepping outside this cultural ritual, they gain the freedom to define their own status and their own community. They are not looking for a tribe to protect them. They are looking for ideas that challenge them or beauty that inspires them. This intellectual independence is a powerful trait, allowing them to remain objective when everyone else is swept up in the fervor. They observe the emotional collapse of fans with a sense of curiosity, wondering how such intensity can be sustained for so long. It is a quiet form of rebellion, choosing to invest in the self rather than the collective outcome of a professional team. When you stop caring about sports, you reclaim the time and energy that was previously spent on vicarious victories or defeats. That reclaimed energy is often redirected into hobbies, creative projects, or the pursuit of deep, meaningful knowledge about the world. You might spend your weekends learning a new skill, reading complex literature, or simply enjoying the silence of your own thoughts. This is not an empty existence. It is a full one, constructed from the bricks of your own genuine interests and passions. The sports fan might feel sorry for you, thinking you are missing out on the joy of the game, but you are not. You are simply playing a different game, one where the rules are set by your own curiosity and your own internal compass. This shift in focus changes how you relate to the world, making you less likely to divide people into allies and enemies. You see the humanity in others without needing a shared jersey to validate their existence or your own connection to them. It is a more inclusive way of living, one that values the individual over the group and the experience over the outcome. As you move through life, you may find that your indifference to sports actually helps you maintain a sense of calm. While others are riding the roller coaster of the season, you are walking on steady ground, unaffected by the shifting scores. This stability is a hidden strength, allowing you to focus on the long-term goals that actually define your personal success. You are building a life that is resistant to the whims of external events, creating a fortress of internal meaning and purpose. It is a life of direct experience, where the victories you celebrate are the ones you have earned through your own effort. The thrill of a championship is fleeting, but the satisfaction of mastering a craft or deepening a relationship lasts a lifetime. This is the core difference. One path relies on external validation, while the other relies on internal satisfaction and self-discovery. Neither is inherently better, but understanding the distinction can help you stop feeling like an outsider in your own culture. You are not broken for failing to find meaning in sports. You are simply wired to find it in places that matter to you. Embrace that difference, because it is the foundation of your unique perspective and your ability to think for yourself. The world needs people who are not swept up in the crowd, people who can stand back and see the bigger picture. Your indifference is a tool for clarity, allowing you to see through the rituals that others take for granted every day. Use that clarity to build a life that is authentic to who you are, rather than who society expects you to be. When you stop trying to fit into the mold of a sports fan, you stop wasting energy on performances that feel hollow. You start living for yourself, making choices that align with your values and your genuine curiosity about the world around you. This is the ultimate form of self-care, choosing to invest in your own growth rather than the outcome of a game. So the next time someone asks about the game, remember that your answer is a reflection of your own unique identity. You don't need to apologize for your lack of interest, nor do you need to explain it to those who won't understand. Your brain is simply tuned to a different frequency, one that values depth, exploration, and the pursuit of your own truth. That is a valid, powerful way to exist in a world that is constantly trying to pull you into the crowd. Stay true to your own path, and continue to find meaning in the things that make your own life feel complete. Because at the end of the day, the only game that truly matters is the one you are playing right now. Your life is your own to build, and that is the most meaningful project you will ever undertake in this world.